Greetings, fellow cultivators. Welcome to Autonova. Remember to like and subscribe to support the journey. Now, let's dive into the next chapter of A Will Eternal. Bai Xiaochun clasped his hands behind his back as he stood there in the courtyard watching the intoxicated bear trundling off into the distance. It looked back 3 times, seemingly reluctant to leave. Bai Xiaochun sighed, musing about the goodness of his deeds. During the following half-month, he continued to go out into the beast conservatory and return with specially selected beasts. The beast-birth flower would swallow them up, and when they emerged, they looked drunk with pleasure, and would make their way off into the distance on unsteady legs. Bai Xiaochun kept his selection very limited, choosing only from 200 of the most special beasts. He wanted the flower to give birth to the ultimate battle beast, and therefore, he selected either the strongest or the largest of the beasts in the jungle. Eventually, all of the beasts which had offered contributions began to gather outside of the spell formation. Whenever Bai Xiaochun appeared, they would howl at the tops of their lungs, as if to ask for another chance. Absolutely not, Bai Xiaochun replied firmly. One contribution is enough. I don't want to harm you. Eventually, Bai Xiaochun brought the huge pangolin over to contribute, and that was when he realized he'd run out of good beasts to choose from. Furthermore, he was well aware that the blooming period of the beast-birth flower didn't last for very long. Eventually, it would give birth to whatever was inside, no matter what it was. That was when he started to get nervous. This won't do. These beasts aren't enough to create the ultimate battle beast. Having reached this point in his train of thoughts, Bai Xiaochun left the beast conservatory to take a walk through the north bank. After observing all of the animals, he had come to be quite familiar with the disciples' battle beasts. He even knew which ones had the greatest potential for future growth, and which ones were the strongest. I remember one female outer sect disciple who had a peacock. It had great potential. That peacock should do nicely, shouldn't it? He quickly hurried over to the residence of that very female disciple. After waiting outside for a while, the young woman approached. She was quite well known in the outer sect, and was very beautiful. As soon as she neared, Bai Xiaochun put a warm smile onto his face, and tactfully offered some merit points if she would allow her peacock to make an important contribution. Although he didn't mention the beast-birth flower itself, he did explain other matters in detail. Worried that she would reject the offer, he decided to add in one more bit of explanation. Don't worry, the contribution itself won't hurt the beast. You know, afterward, all of the beasts who've done it have looked drunk with pleasure. They all want a second round, as a matter of fact, but I was worried it would harm their vital energy, so I refused. The female disciple's expression slowly went blank. Although she wasn't exactly sure what he meant by contribution, after hearing his further explanation, her eyes went wide with fear. You pervert, she huffed. A bit tongue-tied, she stamped her foot and walked off. Bai Xiaochun's jaw dropped, and he felt a bit wronged. I just wanted to borrow your peacock. If you don't agree, that's fine, but there's no need to start cursing me. Bai Xiaochun is no pervert. Feeling a bit down, he went to the next person on his list. During the following days, he visited over 100 disciples, and yet, not a single one agreed. In fact, many of them looked at him with very odd expressions. Bai Xiaochun sighed and decided that since everyone was refusing, he might as well forget the idea. Having no other option, he would have to settle for second best and try out some of the other beasts in the beast conservatory. However, just when he was about to give up, something like a wind blew through the sect. Numerous disciples looked over at Bai Xiaochun with strange expressions on their faces, and began to whisper amongst themselves. Did you hear? Bai Xiaochun has a very unique hobby. For the past few days, he's been going around asking to borrow battle beasts from people. He talks about some sort of contribution, and if you don't know what that means, well, come here, I'll explain it. Oh, so that's what it means. Heavens. I can't believe that Bai Xiaochun uses the beasts for. Heavens. Is it really true? The rumors began to fly completely spontaneously. Apparently, after the North Bank disciples realized they couldn't do anything about Bai Xiaochun, their malice toward him had gradually transformed into intrigue. As such, it only took a few days for everyone to have caught wind of the rumors. Do you know why Bai Xiaochun came to the North Bank? It's the beasts. He has a special sort of love for them. Now I get it. No wonder he made that aphrodisiac pill. It all makes sense now. He needed it for himself to begin with. Chosen always have their eccentric hobbies. I'm just curious as to whether he prefers female beasts or male beasts. Heavens. I can't believe you're wondering about something like that. Shish. Keep your voice down. Look, I think I know the answer to your question. When Bai Xiaochun heard the rumors, he was dumbstruck. The most extreme thing to happen was one evening at dusk when he happened to catch sight of a female disciple with a blue-eyed black cat. A bit curious, he looked over, whereupon the female disciple screamed at the top of her lungs and ran off at top speed. Bai Xiaochun almost couldn't believe it all, and felt very wronged. He tried to explain things to people, and although they seemed to understand, the rumors only raged hotter. What a bunch of bullies, he fumed. It wasn't easy for me, Bai Xiaochun, to come to the North Bank, completely impoverished. I minded my own business and tried not to offend anyone. I walked around with my tail between my legs, and yet, you people push things this far. Slanderers. Eyes bloodshot, he gnashed his teeth. You're going overboard, people. If all you're going to do is slander me, then I'll go get the beasts myself. Even as he burned with rage, he suddenly felt a wind blowing against his back. Looking over his shoulder, he didn't see anyone, but did notice a tree off to the side which was swaying back and forth. Next, a black blur sped toward him, opening its mouth to bite at his belly. The ferocious jaws instantly began to snap shut with terrifying power. Thankfully, Bai Xiaochun was in the 10th level of qi condensation. Furthermore, after awakening from his deep enlightenment, his senses had become heightened. As such, he recognized what was happening and quickly fell back. Even as he did, a mouthful of razor-sharp teeth smashed onto the air a little more than a meter in front of him. The power of the bite was such that even the sound of it was shocking. It seemed to be filled with hatred. The black blur was none other than the Night Stalker beast, the huge black dog. It was currently nighttime, which meant that it was much faster than it was during the day. Seeing that its second attempt to ambush Bai Xiaochun had failed, the dog quickly turned to flee. You again, Bai Xiaochun said, scalp numb, sweat dripping down his neck. He felt chills running up his spine. If he had been even a bit slower to react, then the dog would surely have bitten him. When he thought of what might have resulted, he shivered. He couldn't bet his life on his undying live forever technique. Damned black dog, it almost put an end to an entire prestige clan. He glared in fury as the dog ran off into the distance. Intolerable bullying, he raged. If the North Bank disciples want to bully me, that's one matter, but now a big dog is trying to do the same thing. Last time I felt sorry for you, but this time, you're not getting off the hook. With that, wings sprouted from his back, and he flickered into motion. One man, one dog, they raced through the North Bank at incredible speed. The dog was also very fast, and was very familiar with the area. Bai Xiaochun chased after it for almost an hour, until the sky was completely dark. He never was able to catch up, and yet his fury was not abated. The fact that he had been ambushed, and then completely left in the dust by the perpetrator, made him more angry than ever. As of this moment, the big black dog occupied the number 2 slot on Bai Xiaochun's list of hatreds. The number 3 spot was held by Elder Joe's Phoenix, and the number 1 spot belonged to the abnormally stealthy talking rabbit. Nothing could ever take that first place spot away from the rabbit. I'll chase you to the ends of the earth if I have to. Silver light flickered around him as the undying live forever technique was unleashed to its maximum effect, and his wings fluttered with protomagnetic power. In that moment, his speed instantly doubled. He transformed into a series of afterimages that quickly closed in toward the dog. In that moment, the dog silently attempted to duck into a cave, but before it could, Bai Xiaochun was there, reaching out toward it. As the hand neared, the black dog's eyes turned crimson, and it madly turned its head. Unexpectedly, it was completely disregarding its own safety to lunge toward Bai Xiaochun's belly and take out a bite. The dog had failed in its ambush before, so there was no need to even wonder if it could succeed when Bai Xiaochun was enraged and chasing after it. Before the dog's jaws could even bite down, a gurgling sound could be heard as Bai Xiaochun's hand clamped down onto its throat. His hand was like an iron vice that completely prevented the black dog from escaping. HMPH, now we're going to see how awesome you are. Gritting his teeth, he headed back to the Beast Conservatory, and soon arrived at the honor guard station. After thinking for a moment about how to punish the dog, he suddenly looked over at the beast birth flower. His heart twitched, and he chuckled darkly. With that, he tossed the dog toward the beast birth flower, which swallowed it up in an instant. 2 hours later, the flower opened, and the big black dog crawled out. Although its eyes shone with hatred and madness, there was something else in them as well. Before another moment could pass, it lunged at Bai Xiaochun, who grabbed it and threw it back into the flower. Another 2 hours passed, and the dog appeared again, just as maddened as before. Bai Xiaochun threw it back into the flower. After 4 times, the dog emerged, legs wobbly. It flopped onto the ground, panting. "Scared now?" Bai Xiaochun said, snorting coldly. "Provoke me again, and all." Before he could even finish, the black dog looked up at him and tried its best to reach out and bite him. Enraged, Bai Xiaochun grabbed the dog and threw it back into the beast-birth flower for another go. After 5 more times, it made a total of 9. After 9 times, the dog was gaunt and listless. Seeing that, Bai Xiaochun picked it up, and it let out a miserable howl. Bai Xiaochun felt bad. "Now do you understand what you have to be afraid of? Just don't provoke me anymore. I had no choice but to do what I did in the chosen battles." With this admonishment, he tossed the big black dog out of the honor guard station. The dog used what little energy it had left to flee off into the distance. When it got far enough, though, it turned to look back, and seemed like it was savoring sweet memories. Bai Xiaochun watched the dog disappearing off into the distance, a thoughtful expression on his face. The way it had slowly grown more thin and gaunt was very telling, and gave him a much better understanding of the beast-birth flower's growing process. He suddenly thought of the fragrant aroma the flower exuded. The beast-birth flower exudes a sort of hallucinogenic aura. Once other animals get caught up in it, their qi and blood are stirred, and some of their life essence ancestral blood is extracted by the flower. That's why the dog gradually grew thinner. Wild beasts are slightly different, so when their qi and blood is stimulated, the illusions they experience are also different. Either way, the point of the hallucination is to stop them from resisting. No wonder this beast-birth seed is virtually extinct. In some ways, it's completely superior to all wild beasts. Bai Xiaochun trembled at this new realization. When mosquitoes suck blood, they numb the vicinity of the bite so that they can feast surreptitiously. Likewise, when the beast-birth flower absorbed the life essence ancestral awakening blood, it was done in secret. 7 days passed. Considering how soon the beast-birth flower would be blooming, Bai Xiaochun felt that if he couldn't get any more superior beast's life essence ancestral awakening blood, it would be a huge waste of the flower. Then he thought about how the North Bank disciples had been slandering him, and he ground his teeth. At that point, he slipped out of the beast conservatory into the dark and windswept night. "I haven't done something like this for a while. It's a bit of a loss of face considering my status, but I don't have any other choice." Eyes shining brightly, he drifted undetected through the North Bank until he arrived outside of a certain residence. Inside was a beautiful peacock, currently asleep and completely oblivious to any dangers. Suddenly, a hand snaked out and clasped it by the neck. The peacock struggled as a powerful force dragged it through the night, but it couldn't make even a single sound. Complete unable to free itself, it was quickly taken away by Bai Xiaochun. Glancing around vigilantly to ensure that no one was watching him, he quickly made his way to another location. It didn't take long before he had green python in hand as well as a peacock. And yet, things weren't over. Over the course of the next hour, Bai Xiaochun toiled away. When he returned to the beast conservatory, he had a peacock in his left hand, a night leopard in his right, a white monkey pinned against his side, and a green python wrapped around him. What a gold mine, he thought excitedly. With that, he hurried back to the rear courtyard and bound up the battle beasts. Then he tossed the peacock into the beast-birth flower. After the peacock was swallowed up by the flower, Bai Xiaochun waited in excitement off to the side. Before long, the peacock was spat out, and although it didn't look drunk with pleasure, it seemed to be relishing some wonderful memory. Apparently, the illusion it had experienced was different from the other animals. Before it could recover, Bai Xiaochun grabbed it and then threw the green python into the flower. Then he hurried away with the peacock to return it to where he'd acquired it from. The peacock didn't cry out or struggle. In fact, when Bai Xiaochun turned to leave, it even gazed at him fawningly, almost with anticipation, as if it hoped he would take it away again. Sounding very serious, Bai Xiaochun said, "Having a bit of your life essence ancestral awakening blood extracted won't hurt you. But too much won't be good. Be a good little peacock, alright? Oh, don't tell your master about me, okay?" With that, he left. Bai Xiaochun worked hard that night. After returning the green python, he had the white monkey and the night leopard to deal with. The entire affair left him quite exhausted. However, when he thought about how content the animals looked, and how they clearly didn't wish to leave the flower behind, he knew that he was doing a good thing. Most importantly of all, the beastbirth flower was looking stronger and more healthy than ever. One simple act pleases the battle beasts, pleases the beastbirth flower, and pleases me. It only goes to show what a good deed I'm performing. Overall, he was very happy. The following night when the moon began to rise, he strode out of the beast conservatory, chin stuck up, hair blowing in the wind. For the following several days, he went about the same routine. He picked the best battle beasts, regardless of whether they belonged to outer or inner sect disciples. At the most, he chose 4 per night. Any more, and he wouldn't be able to return them before dawn. Because of his stealth and the profundity of his cultivation base, not a single problem arose. The only difference was that the battle beasts which had provided contributions during the night would act very differently if they encountered Bai Xiaochun during the day. They would leap about excitedly as if they wished to please him. The masters of the various beasts were shocked. In the past, their battle beasts had never liked Bai Xiaochun very much, but now they fawned all over him. Even more strange was that not a single battle beast provided any sort of explanation, not even when asked to do so. Half a month passed, and it was with great pride that Bai Xiaochun looked at the continuously maturing beastbirth flower. Thanks to all of the constant additions of life essence ancestral awakening blood from the most powerful of the battle beasts, his nighttime efforts were all worth it. On this particular night, thick clouds covered the moon, casting everything into pitch darkness. Bai Xiaochun had a hedgehog in one hand and a fierce bull slung over his shoulder, both of them trussed up to keep them quiet as he approached another residence. Black, blue-eyed cat, he murmured, his eyes shining with a strange light. He had never forgotten this particular battle beast. Just as he was about to take action, 2 pairs of blue eyes snapped open within the courtyard up ahead, and the low-pitched yowl of a cat echoed out into the silence of night. So alert, he thought, shocked. The yowl of the cat roused quite a few nearby disciples, so Bai Xiaochun quickly retreated. However, even as he did, the black, blue-eyed cat shot out to block his path. Shockingly, human-level intelligence gleamed in its eyes, as well as something like a sneer. Bai Xiaochun was instantly infuriated. On any other occasion, he could have handled this black cat easily, but now his hands were full, making this more difficult. Suddenly, wings sprouted out behind him, and he vanished before anyone could emerge to see him. Thanks to the powerful yowl of the cat, Bai Xiaochun had a very hard time making it back to the beast conservatory while avoiding the notice of the North Bank disciples. When he finally arrived, he gritted his teeth and mentally cursed the black cat. How am I going to handle that cat? It's simply too vigilant. It was a real headache. Suddenly, Bai Xiaochun's expression flickered, and he lunged to the side, just as a black blur flashed past him, accompanied by the sound of clashing teeth. You again. Bai Xiaochun had been angry to begin with, but when he saw the big black dog, he got even angrier. The dog had already ambushed him twice, and normally, it would flee as soon as it failed. This time, though, it came back for a second round, brimming with madness, ferocity, and especially, hatred. Considering its agility and speed, if it tried to get away, Bai Xiaochun would normally have to use all the power he had, and also spend a significant amount of time, to be able to catch it. But it wasn't fleeing now, so Bai Xiaochun made short work of it. I'm short on beasts tonight. Bai Xiaochun growled. You're in. Holding the struggling dog by the neck, he returned to the rear courtyard. The hedgehog and the fierce bull were the first to make contributions. The last was the fiercely struggling black dog. After returning the bull and the hedgehog, Bai Xiaochun returned, bursting with rage. He had decided that the time had come to treat the black dog to an unforgettable lesson. He would make it offer contributions 15 times in a row. The black dog was gasping for breath by the time Bai Xiaochun tossed it out of the beast conservatory. If you dare to ambush me ever again, Bai Xiaochun shouted, I'll turn you into dog jerky. The dog struggled to its feet and then slunk out into the jungle. When it finally reached a spot where Bai Xiaochun couldn't see it, it flopped down onto the ground and stuck its tongue out to lick its lips. Unexpectedly, an intoxicated gleam appeared in its eyes. Several more days passed, and Bai Xiaochun's nighttime activities continued. However, the vigilant cat continued to be a big headache. Eventually, he prepared to attack it outright, but was shocked to find that the cat had hidden away in its master's room. Bai Xiaochun wasn't sure what to do, but wasn't willing to give up. He continued to work on the other beasts as he pondered the situation. One night, when he was heading back to the beast conservatory with a huge toad, he suddenly stopped in place as a black blur shot past him, accompanied by a familiar sound. It was the big black dog again, which was now standing there in front of him, trembling with eagerness, its teeth bared as if in preparation to attack. At first, Bai Xiaochun was stunned by the dog's persistence, but then he realized that there was something strange going on. During the dog's third ambush, he hadn't thought too much about the fact that it didn't flee immediately. But now the dog was here again, and again, refrained from fleeing. Furthermore, the way it went about the ambush itself seemed a bit perfunctory. In addition to all that, its biting seemed far slower and far less ferocious than the previous occasions. "Are you doing this on purpose?" he asked, shocked. The dog had just been on the verge of lunging forward, but after hearing Bai Xiaochun's question, it stopped in place and looked at him. It didn't growl, it didn't bare its teeth, it didn't leap forward and attack. It just stood there staring at him. A strange expression appeared on Bai Xiaochun's face. Ignoring the dog, he continued on his way. As he sped along, the dog followed, all the way back to the honor guard station. As soon as it entered the rear courtyard, its tail began to wag furiously, and it shot toward the beast birth flower, completely of its own volition. Bai Xiaochun stared in shock, and the expression on his face grew even more odd. After the dog finished its contribution and emerged from the flower, it didn't leave, but rather, jumped right back in. It continued to do the same thing over and over again. By the following evening, it had offered a total of 7 or 8 contributions. That's so much life essence ancestral awakening blood. Are you trying to kill yourself? Damn it, just what kind of fantasy are you experiencing in there? In the end, he grabbed the crazed dog and threw it out the door. As the dog hobbled off, Bai Xiaochun prepared to start threatening it, but then his heart thumped as an idea occurred to him, and he changed tactics. "I know you can understand me," he said. "Listen up. If you want back in here, stop ambushing me. Furthermore, bring me that black, blue-eyed cat, if you can. Then I'll let you make another contribution." The dog looked back for a moment before turning and running off into the distance. A few days later, just when Bai Xiaochun was about to go out and procure some more beasts, he suddenly heard a familiar barking outside his door. Bai Xiaochun stuck his head out and saw that there outside of the spell formation shield was the big black dog. It stood there proudly, paw on the back of the vigilant black cat. The blue-eyed cat seemed very listless and in somewhat sore straits. The black dog looked at Bai Xiaochun and then let out a proud howl. Bai Xiaochun immediately opened the spell formation, whereupon the dog charged in and leapt toward the beast birth flower. Bai Xiaochun was completely taken aback, and mused that whatever illusion the black dog experienced must be extraordinary. "Is it really trying to kill itself?" he thought. With that he approached the blue-eyed cat. After a quick examination, he confirmed that it was only exhausted, and not injured in any way. Grabbing it, he walked back into the courtyard. Sometime later, after 10 contributions to the beast birth flower, Bai Xiaochun finally kicked the black dog out. He was actually starting to get worried that the dog's frequent contributions of life essence ancestral awakening blood might interfere with his plan to create the most powerful of all battle beasts. What would happen if the beast birth flower ended up giving birth to a big black dog? The mere idea left him quite nervous, so he decided to accept no further contributions from the black dog. Without any further hesitation, he tossed the blue-eyed cat into the beast birth flower. During the following half-month, the black dog acted quite obediently. It would often come with a subdued battle beast, cry out until Bai Xiaochun opened the door, then wait eagerly to be allowed in. Bai Xiaochun wanted to refuse, but every battle beast that the dog brought left him shocked. "This dog is a god. All of these beasts are ones I had my eye on, but couldn't get. Their masters either keep them in their bags of beast raising, or in their immortals' caves." Bai Xiaochun just couldn't bring himself to refuse. The black dog had captured his heart, and every battle beast it brought left Bai Xiaochun shaken. In fact, one time it even managed to bring the battle beast of one of the Sunset Peak elders. Eventually, Bai Xiaochun realized the implications, and it left him with only a single question. "Damn it, how long was this black dog stalking me?" Sighing, he looked over at the dog lying quietly next to the beast birth flower, and realized that it really was intelligent, powerful, and very fast. Were it not those things, it would have been impossible to get all of these battle beasts. Fine, poor guy. Considering how much I tired it out before, and how it always brings me these battle beasts, I guess letting it contribute a few more times wouldn't hurt. I can't let things go too far, though. For its own good. With that, he shook his head and turned his attention to the 4 mountain peaks. I need some even more powerful battle beasts. The spirit beast guardians of the 4 mountain peaks are probably the best choice. Licking his lips, he left the honor guard station and headed toward his cave by the ancient beast chasm to concoct some pills. By this point, many of the North Bank disciples were starting to get suspicious. Many battle beasts were starting to behave very oddly, sometimes crying out in the middle of the night. That was especially true of the black, blue-eyed cat, whose cries seemed especially loud. Sometimes, it appeared to be reminiscing about the past, dreaming of being the king of all beasts. It started to sound even more domineering when it yowled, to the point where people in the area couldn't sleep well. Its master was the most anxious of all, unsure of what exactly was happening with her own battle beast. Such situations grew increasingly common throughout the sect. Gradually, the North Bank disciples began to run their own investigations into the matter. A few days later, Bai Xiaochun emerged from his medicine-concocting cave, loaded down with medicinal pills designed to attract wild beasts. When night fell, he hurried out toward Iris Betel Peak. After reaching the summit, he looked anxiously at the cave, and then, eager to find out if his idea would work, threw a Tier 3 spirit medicine inside. Almost as soon as the medicinal pill entered the cave, it shot back out at high speed, slamming into his chest with such force that, without his incredibly tough skin, it would have crushed him. His face fell as he staggered backward a few paces. At the same time, the 7-colored phoenix stretched its head out of the cave and looked at him with a derisive sneer. Of course, it was sneering, not at Bai Xiaochun himself, but at his action of throwing the medicinal pill. Apparently, it was telling him that it didn't consume medicinal pills given to it by strangers. Bai Xiaochun's eyes went wide, and he coughed dryly. Trying to look as charming as possible, he said, "Senior Phoenix, that medicinal pill is really delicious. If you don't like it, that's fine. But if you just come with me, I'll show you a place where all your dreams can come true." However, the phoenix merely flapped its wings, shoving Bai Xiaochun back so far he almost toppled off the nearby cliff. Heart-pounding, he just managed to avoid falling. The 7-colored phoenix glared at him threateningly, then slowly retreated back into its cave. Fine. This 7-colored phoenix is too grouchy. I'll head over to Sunset Peak to see the 3-eyed raven. It has a much better temper. Feeling a headache coming on, he made up his mind, and immediately headed over to Sunset Peak, where he attempted to use the same tactics at the 3-eyed raven's cave. However, after enough time passed for half an incense stick to burn, Bai Xiaochun's scalp tingled in fear as he took to flight. A black flash of light could be seen behind him as the 3-eyed raven gave chase, driving him all the way down the mountain before proudly returning to its cave. I hate birds. HMPH, they have such bad tempers. And Elder Joe's bird even maligned me openly that one time. He felt deeply wronged at how the birds had bullied him despite the fact that he had given them medicinal pills in good faith. However, he couldn't give up on his dream of raising the ultimate battle beast. Therefore, he turned his gaze toward Archway Peak. That big lizard seems pretty well behaved. It's pretty fat too, so that means it probably has a good appetite. Maybe I'll have a chance there. Enlivened, he hurried over to Archway Peak. However, it didn't take long before he returned, scowling. He even had some rips and tears in his garments. The lizard had completely ignored him when he threw it some medicinal pills. After getting anxious, he'd tossed in a few more, whereupon the lizard slashed at him with its claws. He was forced to flee in terror, uninjured, but his clothing destroyed, leaving him looking very dilapidated. The final spirit beast guardian was the mountain ghost of Ghostfang Peak. Bai Xiaochun hesitated all the way until the following night. Finally, he stamped his foot angrily and hurried over to Ghostfang Peak. What he found was that the mountain ghost had the best temper of all. It ignored Bai Xiaochun as if he didn't even exist, and didn't pay the least bit of attention to the medicinal pills. After waiting half the night without any response, he left. The next night, he came back, and even a third night, before he finally gave up, virtually on the verge of tears. All 4 spirit beast guardians hold me in complete contempt. As he sat stewing in the honor guard station, the whole North Bank was astir. The only exception were people who Bai Xiaochun was incapable of provoking, for example the people who kept their battle beasts inside their bags of beast raising. All the other valuable beasts had already made contributions. Even most of the elders' beasts had been brought over by the black dog. However, Bai Xiaochun met with only failure when it came to the spirit beast guardians, leaving him scowling in grief. That was especially true considering that the beast birth flower was on the verge of blooming. I want my battle beast to be unprecedentedly powerful, but the 4 spirit beast guardians refuse to cooperate. I guess I need a battle beast even more powerful than them. What in the sect is more powerful than? Wait a second. Even as he murmured to himself about the subject, he suddenly shivered and looked toward the ancient beast chasm, his eyes shining. The only thing more powerful than the spirit beast guardians is the sect's holy beast guardian. The Heavenhorn Ink Dragon. If I could get that dragon to contribute, it would definitely be enough. Panting excitedly, he began to gather his thoughts. Now that I think about it, I'm on good terms with the holy beast guardian. I've been giving it medicinal pills ever since I got here. Although I've never seen the old Heavenhorn Ink Dragon, it never stopped me from concocting medicine nearby. That means, it actually approves of me. The more he thought about it, the more sense it made. Getting even more excited, he organized his bag of holding, took a deep breath, and flicked his sleeve, heading in the direction of the ancient beast chasm. He sped along in high spirits, ready to take a risk for his dream of raising the ultimate battle beast. Soon, he was standing at the edge of the waterfall which poured down into the ancient beast chasm. Down below, it was impenetrably dark, with swirling black mists everywhere. As he stood at the edge, his arms and legs prickled with coldness that seemed to come from the depths of the chasm itself. He shivered a bit, fearful that he might fall. He backed up a few steps, then gritted its teeth and threw a medicinal pill down inside. Senior Heavenhorn, it's me, Bai Xiaochun of the junior generation. Remember me? I've been giving you medicinal pills for years now. Well, why don't you try this new flavor I came up with? After waiting for a while and getting no response, he started wondering if perhaps the Heavenhorn Ink Dragon might like a different flavor. Finally, he threw in a different Tier 3 spirit medicine. It didn't take long before he'd thrown 7 or 8 pills in. Starting to feel a bit dismayed, he finally threw in a bunch of aphrodisiac pills. However, there was no reaction. Perhaps the heavens have doomed Bai Xiaochun to fail in raising the ultimate battle beast. Sighing dejectedly, he was about to turn and leave when, all of a sudden, the mist inside the cave churned, and a profoundly ancient voice spoke out from within. It's not worth trying, kiddo. I appreciate your kindness, but my fate was sealed 3,000 years ago. However, if you can find a way to get my life essence surging again, even for a moment, then I can do anything you want me to. Bai Xiaochun's eyes went wide. Panting, he turned back around and said, Really? Within the swirling mists of the chasm, 2 eyes appeared that constantly flickered with different colors. The most frequent to appear was magenta. Just those eyes were as large as Bai Xiaochun's entire body, leaving him panting at the thought of how large the entire Heavenhorn Ink Dragon was. When he looked closer, he could just barely make out a horn. After looking closely at the horn for a moment, he was convinced that it really was the Heavenhorn Ink Dragon speaking, and he started to get excited. After a moment of thought, he gritted his teeth. Senior, fear not. I'll work very hard to do just that. With that, Bai Xiaochun turned, his eyes shining with focus and hope. If he could simply get the Heavenhorn Ink Dragon to contribute a single time, then his hopes of raising the ultimate battle beast would surely be fulfilled. Life essence exhausted, wants it to surge. That will require some serious stimulation. When it comes to stimulation, what could possibly compare to the effectiveness of my aphrodisiac pill? Eyes bloodshot, he flew out of the beast conservatory toward Mount Deoseed. Considering his status and the vast amount of merit points he had saved up, he had no trouble procuring the medicinal plants he needed. By the time he was finished, he had spent more than half of his merit points. He bought so many ingredients that he couldn't even fit them into one bag of holding. It took 7 bags, all of them stuffed to the brim. The disciple in charge of selling medicinal plants stared in shock. In all the years he had been in charge, he had never seen anyone spend merit points in such shocking fashion. Naturally, the disciple recognized him. After he left, that disciple took a deep breath and mused about how godlike Bai Xiaochun was. After purchasing such a huge collection of medicinal plants, he returned to the vicinity of the ancient beast chasm to begin concocting medicine. Soon his eyes were bloodshot, and he was in a state of frenzy. I have to concoct a super aphrodisiac pill, he said through gritted teeth. Determined to drastically increase the medicinal efficacy, he adjusted the pill formula to raise the potency by hundreds if not thousands of times. 7 days flew by. Bai Xiaochun didn't rest at all, and soon, his hair was in complete disarray. He was completely immersed in his concocting. Occasionally the black dog would come with battle beasts, whereupon Bai Xiaochun would impatiently give it a jade slip so that it could temporarily open the spell formation. The dog was very intelligent, and would use the jade slip to take the battle beast back to the honor guard station and carefully carry out the mission assigned to it by Bai Xiaochun. Apparently it was worried that if it didn't carry things out properly, it would have no more chances to return in the future. Of course, without Bai Xiaochun there to supervise it, the dog didn't exercise much control over how many times it contributed. Over time, the North Bank disciples gradually went mad. Each battle beast that went missing would return with a strange expression on its face, somehow prideful, as if it were the king of the world. It would act manic, murderous, intoxicated, and seemed to constantly be thinking about the past. Furthermore, no matter how the masters of such beasts tried to pry information out of them, it did no good. More and more battle beasts exhibited such behavior. Some of the beasts had been strictly disciplined by their masters in the past, and would never have dreamed of acting out. But after disappearing and experiencing the illusory life of being the ruler of the world, they became uncontrollable. The North Bank was in chaos. What's happening? There's something fishy going on. We have to figure out what. Eventually, even the battle beasts belonging to the elders began to act similarly. Before long, all of the disciples on the North Bank were investigating the situation. 3 days later, Bai Xiaochun was completely immersed in his madness. It was with complete and utter fearlessness that he hurried over to the edge of the chasm and asked for a drop of blood from the Heavenhorn Ink Dragon. On any other occasion, Bai Xiaochun would never have done anything so dangerous, but considering the bedeviled state he was in, he completely suppressed any urge to consider the potential consequences. After a long moment of silence from within the chasm, Bai Xiaochun impatiently said that he didn't have time to waste. A moment later, a golden drop of blood flew out, which Bai Xiaochun quickly put into a bottle. Then, he hurried back into his cave to continue his concocting work. 5 days later, he had been at work for half a month, with no rest. It was at that point that the super aphrodisiac pill finally appeared in the world. That evening, rumbling sounds echoed out as Bai Xiaochun stared at the head-sized medicinal pill, then threw his head back and laughed uproariously. Not only was the pill physically large, it was extremely heavy. As soon as it appeared in the pill furnace, a strong medicinal aroma spread out in all directions. As the aroma wafted out from the cave, the black dog, which had been carrying along a battle beast, suddenly got a whiff. A tremor ran through it, and its eyes turned bright red. Howling, it ran out of the beast conservatory to parts unknown. At the same time, countless excited howls could be heard throughout the jungle of the beast conservatory. Seeing how effective the pill was already, Bai Xiaochun began to laugh even more loudly. He was trembling with excitement, but was still worried that the pill wasn't good enough. Hurrying off to a location where he could be certain of his privacy, he produced his wok and began to perform a spirit enhancement. After the threefold spirit enhancement was completed, his super aphrodisiac pill had reached a level that was virtually unheard of in the cultivation world. A superior grade pill. This pill will definitely work. If it doesn't, then Bai Xiaochun will give up on pill concocting. Spirits soaring and bursting with self-confidence, he carried the medicinal pill over to the waterfall entrance of the ancient beast chasm. Without any hesitation, he threw the pill down. The pill disappeared soundlessly into the darkness. Bai Xiaochun stood there on the edge of the chasm, waiting. Time passed. After a full hour had gone by, he was starting to get nervous, despite his confidence. No way. I increased the medicinal efficacy by over 1,000-fold. Another hour passed, and Bai Xiaochun was starting to sweat anxiously. Suddenly, the mist in the chasm began to swirl, and a roar echoed out that could shake heaven and earth. As it blasted out from within the mist, accompanied by a gale-force wind, Bai Xiaochun backed up a few paces. Then, an enormous column of swirling black mist rocketed up into the air, twisting and turning. At the same time, an exultant voice echoed out in all directions. At long last, I can sense my life essence surging. Then, the column of mist began to collapse, and a huge clawed hand reached out from within the chasm. When it grabbed onto the mountain cliff off to the side, the ground quaked. The hand was pitch black and covered with scales the size of people. The claws were razor-sharp, and glowed faintly, radiating an energy that left one trembling. An enormous, mountain-like head then emerged from within the chasm, pitch black, with a shocking horn stretching out from its forehead. The mere appearance of that horn seemed to make everything in the area blurry. One might expect a dragon's eyes to be 9 meters wide, but this dragon's eyes were even larger. It radiated a profoundly ancient aura, and its head was crisscrossed with scars of all types. One could only imagine the fierce battles the dragon had fought in the past. Although it was ancient, it still radiated incredible energy and power. When it threw its head back and roared, all of the beasts in the jungle prostrated themselves and remained on the ground, completely unmoving. Bai Xiaochun forced himself to swallow. This dragon was unimaginably large, and what was most frightening was that less than half of its body had emerged from the chasm. Bai Xiaochun's knees began to go weak, and his mind was spinning. It was about then that the huge dragon glanced down at Bai Xiaochun, and then lowered its head down to his level. Bai Xiaochun immediately felt incredible pressure weighing down on him. The head in front of him filled his field of vision, obscuring everything else. More anxious than ever, he blurted, "Senior Heavenhorn, it's me, Bai Xiaochun. Remember me? I concocted that medicinal pill. It took me half a month. I very nearly worked myself to death in the process." The Heavenhorn Ink Dragon looked at him for a moment, and then smiled. Of course, from Bai Xiaochun's perspective, that smile was hair-raisingly terrifying. Before he could say anything further, the gigantic dragon shrank down right there in front of him. Within the blink of an eye, it was a 9-meter-long black lizard. It actually looked very similar to the lizard from Archway Peak. The lizard landed in front of Bai Xiaochun, and as soon as its claws touched the ground, everything in the area distorted. When things grew clear again, Bai Xiaochun was shocked to find that they were back in the rear courtyard of the honor guard station. "Somehow you got your hands on a beast birth seed," the dragon said. "I could sense it the moment you brought it here. It pulls you into a hallucination, extract your life force, then uses it to condense ancestral awakening blood. With this seed, my bloodline can finally be passed on." The Heavenhorn Ink Dragon sighed. Completely ignoring Bai Xiaochun, it approached the beastbirth flower, which began to tremble, and then slowly opened. The Heavenhorn Ink Dragon didn't resist as the flower swallowed it up. In fact, it even seemed to have an expression of anticipation on its face. Bai Xiaochun waited nervously off to the side, watching the beastbirth flower, wondering what sort of illusion the Heavenhorn Ink Dragon was experiencing. Unlike the other beasts, which were relatively quiet, this time, roars echoed out. Bai Xiaochun felt like he was about to cry. He suddenly had the feeling that maybe he'd pushed things too far, that maybe his beastbirth flower couldn't handle the terrifying Heavenhorn Ink Dragon. Praying nervously, he waited for 4 hours. Finally, the Heavenhorn Ink Dragon flew out, expression somber. After a moment, it flew right back into the flower. Time passed. For the following 9 days, Bai Xiaochun watched in shock as the Heavenhorn Ink Dragon surpassed the Black Dog's accomplishments. It contributed more than 50 times before flying away. Illusions are nice, but they're merely the past. I like you, kiddo. If you ever need help with anything in the future, I'll do my best to accommodate, as long as it's not too outrageous. The voice of the sect's holy beast guardian rang like a huge bell as it expressed its appreciation toward Bai Xiaochun. Just as it was turning to leave, Bai Xiaochun hesitated for a moment. From his perspective, he had just provided a great service to the sect, and had done a very good deed. Face filled with anticipation, he said, "Senior Heavenhorn, do you think you could get the spirit beast guardians from the 4 mountain peaks of the North Bank to come contribute a bit? Maybe even the beasts belonging to the Peak Lords? Those runts? No problem." The Heavenhorn Ink Dragon grinned and then took a deep breath. Bai Xiaochun sensed heaven and earth distorting for a moment, and then, the 7-colored phoenix, the 3-eyed raven, the mountain ghost and the Archway Peak lizard all appeared in front of the Heavenhorn Ink Dragon. Also present were the battle beasts belonging to the Peak Lords. The instant they appeared, they began to tremble, their eyes shining with fear. Even the 3-eyed raven and the 7-colored phoenix were shivering, and the mountain ghost knelt down on the ground. The Archway Peak lizard seemed even more frightened as it prostrated itself. The Peak Lord's beasts were the most terrified of all. Bai Xiaochun looked on ecstatically as all of these insufferably arrogant beasts obediently complied with the instructions given by the Heavenhorn Ink Dragon. One by one, they entered the beastbirth flower to offer contributions. The following morning, they left, looking somewhat dazed. The heaven-horn ink dragon also departed, giving Bai Xiaochun a final look of praise. Bai Xiaochun threw his head back and laughed uproariously. By this point, the beast-birth flower was beginning to close in on itself. It was no longer emitting any aura or fragrance, and was clearly about to give birth to the battle beast inside, to Bai Xiaochun's delight and pride. Recently, he had heard about how the disciples of the North Bank were investigating the situation regarding the battle beasts, and couldn't help but chuckle proudly. Bai Xiaochun is about to have the ultimate battle beast. HMPH, you North Bank disciples should be shaking in fear. I already thought of a name for him. Bruiser. 1. Not only did you refuse to lend me your battle beasts, you even slandered my name. Just wait until you realize what happened. Once you figure out your beasts contributed their own life force essence at my behest, then I'll slip back to the South Bank and you won't be able to do anything about it. Ha 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 ha. Sticking his chin up, he waved his sleeve and assumed the pose of a lonely hero, doing nothing to cover up the look of pride on his face. However, in that very moment of beauty, he suddenly felt as if someone were watching him. Shocked, he turned around and saw that there next to the honor guard station, a newcomer had arrived at some point. It was none other than the miraculously stealthy, long-eared rabbit. After gaping in shock for a moment, he shrieked, why you damned talking rabbit. What are you doing here? The rabbit gaped in shock and then shrieked, why you damned talking rabbit. What are you doing here? With that, it turned tail and vanished in a blur, moving faster than the black dog ever could. 1. In Chinese, the name Bai Xiaochun picks is supposed to sound tough, but comes across as funny and somewhat low class. It's the kind of name that will provoke a chuckle from Chinese readers, and I think this English version captures roughly the same feeling as the original. Ag, don't spread that, he shouted. Well aware of the rabbit's proclivities, he burst into motion, wings popping out behind him as he gave chase at top speed. However, the rabbit was far too fast. Soon, only its voice could be heard, echoing out in the distance. Ag, don't spread that. After chasing the rabbit in vain for some time, Bai Xiaochun found to his despair that, despite being in the 10th level of qi condensation, he wasn't even close to being as fast as the rabbit. Its godlike speed was completely beyond belief. I'm finished. Kaput, he muttered, staring blankly at the disappearing rabbit. He stood there trembling, mind spinning. Even in his wildest dreams, he would never have imagined that the talking rabbit would somehow show up on the North Bank. It was like a nightmare come true. What did I just say? He muttered, tugging at his hair. How much did the rabbit hear? He felt like crying. The incredibly stealthy talking rabbit had pushed him to the brink of madness. If things like this kept happening, he was certain that it would start affecting him mentally. Maybe he should just stop talking from now on. He already regretted creating the mystery pill which had led to the creation of this incredibly annoying talking rabbit. That damned rabbit probably didn't hear anything. Definitely nothing. If it did, it would have started repeating it immediately. Still jittery, he sniffled a bit as he tried to comfort himself, and yet, it did little good. The talking rabbit was like a pill furnace that could explode at any moment, shaking heaven and earth. He returned nervously to the honor guard station, where he straightened things up in case he needed to make a sudden break for the South Bank. Then, he looked nervously at his beast-birth flower. 3 days. My ultimate battle beast will appear in 3 days. Eyes bloodshot, he could do little more than wait nervously. The black dog dragged over another battle beast, but Bai Xiaochun staunchly turned it away and explained that in the future, there would be no need for any further contributions or any other battle beasts. The black dog didn't look very happy, and immediately bared its teeth in ferocious fashion. Bai Xiaochun's heart began to thump, and he coughed dryly. Well, it's not that set in stone, he said. Look, there's a super stealthy rabbit that's been lurking around the North Bank. It loves to chatter constantly. Why don't you go catch that for me? The dog looked back suspiciously at Bai Xiaochun, who continued to gesticulate wildly and offer further explanations. Finally, the dog understood, and it turned and vanished in a black blur. Bai Xiaochun watched it go, eyes sparkling with anticipation. Good luck, buddy. If you can get that rabbit for me, I'll do everything I can to find another beast-birth seed for you. The mere thought of the terrifying talking rabbit caused Bai Xiaochun to sigh. Heading back into the rear courtyard, he continued to wait anxiously. Another day passed. During that time, Bai Xiaochun kept his ears focused on any possible sounds coming from outside. All of the North Bank disciples were in a stir as they searched for the reason why their battle beasts had suddenly changed. Of course, people already suspected Bai Xiaochun, and even came to look around the honor guard station. However, he had done a good job of making sure that no one saw the beast birth flower. Furthermore, he had carried out all his activities at night, and had been very careful not to leave behind any clues. Therefore, although people suspected him, there was no incriminating evidence, so eventually, the disciples left him alone. Bai Xiaochun only got more nervous, though. Another day passed, and the investigation grew more serious. That was especially true among the disciples whose battle beasts had become a lot harder to control. They were constantly breaking out into fits of rage. What exactly is going on here? Maybe it's some sort of plague? But it doesn't seem like a plague. That can't be the reason. Something fishy is going on. Something very, very fishy. The North Bank was in a frenzy, and was bubbling on the point of an eruption. Massive amounts of outer sect disciples were involved in the investigation, as were inner sect disciples. Even the peak lords got involved. Soon, it was only half a day before the beast birth flower was due to bloom. That was when a clue was finally unturned. Beihan Lai's old Night Stalker beast. It took away a battle beast recently, and when the beast returned, it had a very strange expression on its face. Find that dog. Enraged, the North Bank disciples spread out everywhere on the North Bank. Soon, they found the black dog, and at the same time, they found a rabbit. The rabbit was flying along helter-skelter as it was chased by the black dog. If that were all there were to it, it might not be a big deal. However, it wasn't long before the faces of the disciples flickered in shock as they realized that the rabbit was talking. Junior Sister Meixiang, considering my status as the Peak Lord of Ghostfang Peak, I hereby swear that I will never allow Li Qinghao to win your hand. Ooh, you're so naughty, elder son. Ha ha ha, this medicinal pill is incredible. I, Bai Xiaochun, am clearly super awesome. This rabbit can actually talk. Bai Xiaochun is about to have the ultimate battle beast. HMPH, you North Bank disciples should be shaking in fear. Not only did you refuse to lend me your battle beasts, you even slandered my name. Just wait until you realize what happened. Once you figure out your beasts contributed their own life force essence at my behest, then I'll slip back to the South Bank and you won't be able to do anything about it. Ha 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 ha. As the rabbit sped along spewing its vivid and realistic lines of dialogue, the North Bank disciples stared mutely. However, when it reached the end of the passages, they realized that this strange and marvelous rabbit had been created by Bai Xiaochun, and that it loved to talk. The North Bank disciples were trembling, their eyes wide, their breath coming in ragged pants. They watched as the black dog chased after the rabbit, and the two disappeared off into the distance. Contributed life force essence? When we realize what happened with our beasts, Bai Xiaochun plans to slip back to the South Bank. Bai Xiaochun. Countless North Bank disciples howled in rage, especially the ones whose battle beasts had been affected. All of them began to fly at top speed in the direction of the Beast Conservatory, causing heaven and earth to shake violently. As the rabbit ran along, it continued to talk, until eventually, all of the North Bank disciples heard it. Eyes wide, they bellowed in rage, causing all of the North Bank to quake. Bai Xiaochun. So, you were the one who did this. You want to slip back to the South Bank? Take Bai Xiaochun down. The North Bank disciples were maddened. The outer sect, the inner sect, and even many of the elders appeared and began to rush in the direction of the Beast Conservatory. As the stealthy rabbit fled from the black dog, it suddenly stopped in place, as it realized that an old monkey had appeared in front of it out of nowhere. The monkey's expression was serious as it stared at the rabbit for a moment, and then spoke in a profoundly ancient and threatening voice. Who exactly are you, rabbit? The rabbit looked back with an expression as ancient and threatening as the monkey's. Who exactly are you, rabbit? It said. The monkey eyes flickered sharply, and it suddenly launched itself toward the rabbit. The same look appeared in the rabbit's eyes as it turned and fled. A moment later, the monkey and the rabbit were nowhere to be seen. Meanwhile, back in the Beast Conservatory, Bai Xiaochun was waiting anxiously. In only 4 more hours, the ultimate battle beast would appear. It was at that point that an intense rumbling sound rose up outside, and soon, figures appeared, rushing in his direction. Bai Xiaochun. Enraged North Bank disciples closed in, not even pausing before they slammed into the spell formation shields surrounding the honor guard station. Incredible rumbling sounds echoed out, and the spell formation trembled. Bai Xiaochun's eyes went wide, and his heart began to pound. What are you people doing? I'm a prestige disciple. I'm the junior brother of the sect leader. I've spilled. It doesn't matter who you are, shouted the mob. Soon, cracking sounds were emanating from the spell formation under the combined bombardment of the crowd. It was already on the verge of breaking. Bai Xiaochun's scalp was tingling with fear as he realized how truly ferocious the North Bank disciples were. The South Bank disciples usually resorted to throwing rocks, but the North Bank disciples were actually unleashing full attacks. All of a sudden, he realized that if the spell formation broke, he would quickly be reduced to a bloody paste. Help! They're trying to kill me, he screamed, backing up. He felt utterly wronged by these bullying North Bank disciples. First they provoked him, then they slandered him, and when he simply borrowed their beasts for some contributions, they tried to kill him. In the instant that he began to back up, the spell formation shattered, and countless North Bank disciples prepared to charge in. It was at that point that a cold snort echoed out from the sky above, and the 4 peak lords of the North Bank descended to intervene. The old woman from Irispetal Peak looked out at the North Bank disciples. Unwilling to accept that Bai Xiaochun was being protected, some of the disciples spoke out. Peak Lord, where? Shut up, said the old lady, her voice booming like thunder. How dare you attack the Beast Conservatory? What shocking behavior! The surrounding disciples fidgeted in place apprehensively. Breathing a sigh of relief, Bai Xiaochun solemnly added, That's right. How dare you attack the Beast Conservatory? What shocking behavior! You shut up too, the old woman said, turning to glare at Bai Xiaochun. Just when she was about to continue speaking, her eyes went wide as she noticed the beastbirth flower in the rear courtyard. Even as she gasped, the other peak lords began to tremble. A beastbirth flower. Thus, this episode comes to an end. Remember to like and comment so we can discuss the story together. Until we meet again in the next chapters.